Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove. We're back for our third weekly Q&A since the latest restrictions here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I sent out, again, emails, DMs, text messages to clients asking them to send me their questions that they have for the week. Again, I received quite a few questions, so I'm really having fun with this Q&A. Just a reminder, we do another weekly Q&A on the online training platform as well. So that's a separate Q&A that's also recorded. And that one's done live. But there's also a recording of it. So this is a weekly Q&A that goes up on our YouTube channel and it's open for everyone to see. And anyone can ask questions. So if you have any questions with regards to training, dietary nutrition, or supplementation, send them to me at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can also DM them to me on my Instagram at fitcosgrove. All right, so let's get started on our first question. Hey, Nick, what's the biggest mistake that you see people make in the gym? And what's the biggest mistake that you see people make on their diet? Okay, so when it comes to training the gym, there's a few mistakes I see, but there's two major mistakes that I see. The first one is coming into the gym without a structured plan. I see this all the time. People come into even my gym who are just training on their own and they don't really have a structured plan in place. They'll go from a bench press to a squat, and then from a squat they'll go to a shoulder press, and it's kind of like they have no idea what they're doing. They're just trying to just think on the fly of what exercise to do after the other. You should always have a game plan ahead of time coming into your workout. So whether you're training chest and back one day, bis and tris one day, shoulders and abs one day, or you're going in for a leg workout, you should always know what you're training, what muscle group. And then the exercises, of course, can change based on what's available to you, or maybe how you're feeling. I know the other day I did a back workout. My lower back was bothering me a little bit, so I didn't do any bent over barbell rows, but I did wide grip cable rows instead. Okay, so I'm still working my upper back in that case. So I just kind of planned accordingly based on how my body felt, but I still went in knowing to that workout I was training back. So I'd always have a structured plan. That's the one thing I see people not having when they come to the gym. Another thing is range of motion. Don't even get me started on form for most people, because a lot of people break their form, but range of motion is crucial. There's so many times I'll watch someone in the gym and they'll do a squat, and that squat's only maybe going a quarter of the way down. They don't go all the way down. Or they're doing a bench press and that bar might only go to maybe 3/4 of the way down. They don't go all the way down. So that usually comes down to a mobility and flexibility issue for a lot of people. And sometimes people actually just don't want the muscle to burn. They don't want to push themselves too hard. So they use half range of motion. Problem is, if you use half range of motion, you're going to get half-assed results. So those are the two major problems I see in the gym: is people not coming in with a structured game plan ahead of time, and range of motion. Okay, form in general, but range of motion crucial. So I'd really, if you're in the gym, I'd really focus on when you're training, your range of motion is key. Okay, and again, if you're not too sure how to correct your own form or make sure that you are executing proper form, then work with a coach for a few weeks, just so they can actually just look at you and watch you in the gym and say, okay, assess your form and assess your technique and give you some pointers. I think the second part of that question was, what's the biggest mistake that you see people make on their diet? Again, there's a few, but I think the biggest mistake I see people make, they try to do too much too soon. Okay, so New Year's is a perfect example. That's when a lot of people, they change their eating habits, right? And what they'll do is they'll go from eating a diet that's full of, simple carbs, sugars, trans fats. They eat out every day. They order from Skip the Dishes. And all of a sudden they say, okay, well, it's January 1st, so I'm going to clean up this diet and I'm going to eat lettuce, broccoli, and chicken breast 7 times a day. The problem with a diet like that, it's not sustainable. So you might, if you go on let's say a very caloric restricted diet for 3-4 weeks, you're going to lose a lot of weight. I mean, yeah, for sure. Especially if you're overweight to begin with, you'll probably lose 3 pounds a week. The problem is a diet like that is not sustainable. And what's going to happen is when you go back to your regular eating patterns, you're going to put all that weight back on and more. Okay. I've said this before, even with the keto diet. I'm not a big fan of these diets that do too much too soon, or they eliminate carbohydrates, or they eliminate even fats, or you have to find a balance. So yeah, it's good that you're motivated and you want to lose all this weight and you want to clean up your diet. But when you go too extreme, that doesn't end up well for anybody. So that's the biggest mistake I see. And, I just want to add a bonus to that too. The biggest mistake I see with a lot of people with their diets, they don't look at the sugar content. Sugar, without a doubt, is number one. Whenever I look at a nutritional label on a food product, that's the first thing I look at before I look at carbohydrates, calories, fats. Sugar is the number one. If it has more than, for me personally, if it has more than 5 grams of sugar per serving, I don't touch it. Okay, it's not worth it. So that's another thing I'd be looking at right there is the sugar content. Because really, a man shouldn't be consuming more than 30 grams of sugar a day, and a woman shouldn't be consuming more than about 25 grams of sugar a day. Obviously, those numbers can vary a little bit, but that's your rate, your general range that you want to stay within. And I'm talking about natural sugar, okay, not processed sugar. So when it comes to diet, too much too soon. And as a bonus, watch your sugar intake. Question number 2. Do you have any idea if they will be extending gym closures past the 18th? Okay. Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say right now, right? You know, the one thing, I haven't heard anything from our government here in BC with regards to those latest restrictions with gym closures. I'm optimistic that the gyms will reopen on Tuesday, January 18th of next week. I do think if they do open, there's going to be some more regulations put in place, obviously, with mask wearing and social distancing, maybe no group classes. But again, they haven't really given us any guidelines yet. And I'm getting a lot of emails from clients asking me, are we good to go next week? So I don't know. I mean, my guess really is as good as yours, right? So I'm waiting to hear, just like you're all waiting to hear here if you live in Vancouver, what's going to happen next. I do think we can, I can't speak on behalf of other gyms, but I do think we can open our gym safely. I mean, we were open during the earlier stages of COVID last year and everything was fine. We didn't have one COVID case. We had to stop our group classes, but private training continued. People wore masks, so it worked out fine. I know this new variant's a little bit more transmissible, so we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But as it stands right now, I don't know if the gyms are going to reopen next Tuesday. I'm optimistic that they will. Do I think they will? Personally, I don't, but I hope I'm wrong. I want to be wrong on that. Question number 3. Hi, Nick. Why do most trainers prefer using free weights over machines with their clients? I feel as if I can get better form when using machines over free weights. Well, the reason why you probably feel you can get better form when you're using a machine is because the machine kind of dictates the motion that you're going in, right? Let's say you're doing a machine shoulder press. Well, that's pretty easy to control. You're just going up and down with the motion. Now, if you have 2 dumbbells in your hand, you have to stabilize those dumbbells. You have to balance them. It takes a little bit more effort. So, you really have to focus when you're doing free weights over machines. The reason why I and a lot of trainers recommend free weights over machines is just for that reason. You are working your stabilizers and you are actually putting more effort into each set. More effort equates to more muscle, right? So you're going to build more muscle. You're going to burn more calories because you're exerting more energy. And that's one of the reasons that I like to have my clients do primarily free weights. I'll have them do some cable work as well, whether it's a lat pull down or a seated row or a tricep rope extension. But the basis of the workouts that we do in our gym are all free weights, all compound movements, barbell bench press, barbell squats, dumbbell shoulder press, dumbbell lateral raises, walking lunges, BOSU crunches, BOSU squats. So there's a lot of free weight exercises that I recommend over machines. Machines do have their place though. So if I'm working with someone who might be rehabilitating an injury, maybe they had a dislocated shoulder, a pec tear, I might say, okay, for the next few weeks in your training program, I want you just doing some incline hammer strength chest presses, if it's a chest, if it's a pec tear, for example, just so they can work their way back up to balancing the dumbbells, balancing the bar again, right? Same thing if someone, let's say, tore their quad and now they're back in the gym a few months later, I might say, okay, I want you doing the Smith machine squat for the next few weeks rather than a regular barbell squat, just so they can get that range of motion back. And then over time, they can go back to their free weights. I also don't recommend beginners start on machines. I think that's actually a bad idea. I know a lot of trainers recommend that. I don't. I think if you're a beginner, you're brand new to the gym, you don't have any physical limitations, you have no injuries, I think it's actually going to be to your benefit to actually start with free weights. And again, if that comes down to working with a coach for a few weeks, do that. Because I think what happens if you start as a beginner and you only work on machines, you get used to those machines. And let's face it, the machines do have to work for you. And it's easy to get comfortable in the gym when you get used to a certain routine. And that's the last thing you want to do is get used to a machine routine and not know how to do any free weights. So I think that's a big mistake I see beginners make too. I would, for myself personally, when I first started in the gym, there were no machines for the gym I trained at. It was all barbells and dumbbells. So you had to do free weights. So you had to learn. So I personally would prefer using free weights for that reason. It does work your stabilizers. You exert more energy. You're going to build more muscle, burn more fat. Question number 4. Nick, how much cardio do you recommend a person who weight trains 5 times a week do each week? That's going to depend on the individual. I train a lot of people online who I recommend just 20 minutes of low intensity cardio day after the workout. Okay, that's usually the average person that works with me who's not trying to lose a whole bunch of, let's say, weight in a fast period of time. Say they're just, even if it's their off season, if it's a competitor, I recommend the average person just 20 minutes of low intensity cardio after their weight training. That doesn't necessarily have to be that you're walking on a treadmill. If you walk to and from the gym, that's great, but it should be about a good 20-minute walk, in my opinion, and it should be like a nice speed walk. As far as cardio itself, cardio is excellent for your heart. You have to remember that. So if you're weight training in the gym and your workouts are intense, like for me, my workouts are very intense. After I'm done a set, I'm catching my breath. Like I push a lot of weight. So my heart rate already gets a good workout from my weight workouts. For me, it's still important to do that cardio just to keep myself, my heart healthy, right? So I just want to make sure that, when I'm doing that cardio, it also allows me to rest less in between sets. That's another big mistake I see when people don't do enough cardio is they take forever in between sets because they're so winded. So doing some cardio will definitely help. I wouldn't rely on cardio for fat loss though. That I'd rely more on the diet itself. But I do think cardio is an important component to throw into your training program. So it's not like there's a magical number of 3 times, 5 times, 6 times a week and do it for this amount of time. Generally, for the average person I work with, I have them doing about 20 minutes of cardio 5 days a week. But that changes too. If I have someone who's getting ready for a show and I need to get them down to say 3% body fat and they're 5 weeks out from a show, I might have them do sometimes an hour to an hour and a half a day. But you have to remember, that's someone who's competing for a bodybuilding or a fitness competition. So their body fat has to be incredibly low. Okay. That again is not sustainable. So I don't have someone doing 90 minutes of cardio a day, 365 days a year. That's only for a short period of time. So to answer that question, I would say if you're training, if this person's case training 5 days a week in the gym, I would throw in 20, maybe 30 minutes of cardio at the end of each session and just low intensity cardio. Again, you want to keep your heart healthy, right? And that's so important. And I've always thought the great thing with doing cardio, as I mentioned earlier, is that it helps me with my weight training workouts. I train a lot of bodybuilders who don't do any cardio and they're winded between each sets. They're like huffing and puffing. I'm good to go again. And I attribute that to all the cardio I've done for the past 20 plus years. Okay, next question. Hi, Nick. How come you have been promoting yoga on your IG account so much in the last few months? Well, last week, actually, I had Charlene Labrador, who's been working with us. She's a yoga instructor, and she joined us back in the summer of this year, joined our company, and she's been training clients at our facility in downtown Vancouver. And so one of the reasons I'm not just promoting yoga, but I'm also promoting her services is because I'm actually a true believer in adding yoga into a weight training routine. I've personally been doing it myself, and I've noticed the benefits of just the mobility and the flexibility that's allowed me to get through my weight workouts more efficiently. And I was having some problems with really, really tight traps, tight pecs. Again, I don't know anything about yoga, but I know adding a little bit of flexibility training into my routine has definitely helped. So that's one of the reasons I've been promoting it a lot on my IG account. And I've been telling clients, you should book a session with Charlene. It does make a difference. It really does. Like you notice it right away too. And again, I don't know anything about yoga. I don't teach yoga. I just follow what she tells me to do, right? And I think it's very beneficial to add into really any fitness routine. And it doesn't have to be long. I mean, yeah, Charlene's sessions are anywhere from 45 minutes to 60 minutes long. But I mean, you can do a good, and in my opinion, you could do like a good stretching session sometimes in 30 minutes, right? Or even 15 minutes at the end of a workout. But I think when I was younger, I made a mistake. I never stretched. And that actually became detrimental to my training because I noticed over the years, my shoulders started to round forward. My pecs would get incredibly tight when I tried to do a fly. My hip flexors would get tight when I tried to do a squat. It would take me longer to warm up in the squat rack for my knees. Now my joints feel great. So I'm a firm believer in adding movements, like any movements that require, heavy loads of weight, adding some flexibility training into those. Okay. So I do recommend booking a few yoga sessions with Charlene for sure. Next question. Hi, Nick. What type of shoes do you recommend wearing for weightlifting? I get this question a lot. So unless you suffer from, let's say, plantar fasciitis, or maybe you have patellofemoral syndrome in your knee, and you really need to wear something with good orthotics for the sole of your feet, I think regular shoes are fine. Obviously, you're not going to wear dress shoes or boots to the gym, but regular running shoes should be okay. I like to wear my Jordan mids when I train on the floor, and they're really just for aesthetics. There's not really any function for them. They look good, but I don't have any feet issues either. I don't have any joint issues with my knees. Now, if you are looking for a really good pair of shoes because maybe you're a runner, or maybe you do a lot of so you do CrossFit in the gym, or you do a lot of ballistic movements, or anything that requires you to move around the gym quite a bit, skipping, you might want to look at a pair of Asics. They're a little bit more pricey. I think Asics shoes can get up to $250, $300 a pair, but I have a lot of clients that do wear those and they swear by them. So I think Asics shoes are good to go. If you're looking for a certain pair because you have problems with, say, like I said, if you have patellofemoral syndrome, and you have plantar fasciitis, and you're looking for something with good support, good arch support, yeah, I'd recommend something like Asics. I know there's a lot of people that go for orthotics doing their shoes, so that's another option. But if you don't have any problems, a good pair of Nikes should be fine. Here in Vancouver, a lot of people like to wear those New Balance shoes, and they seem to be quite popular. Again, I wear Jordan mids, so and I've never had any feet problems. Knock on wood, I don't have any. But when I do leg exercises, though, when I do squats, for example, always barefoot, so I don't even use shoes. Okay, next question. Nick, I'm lacking the motivation to go to the gym and train these days. Do you have any tips on how to stay motivated? Yeah, it's hard sometimes, right? Especially when it's cold outside, or here in Vancouver, we had snow for the last 2 weeks. So it's plus with restrictions being can't even train. It's very hard to get motivated to work out in your home, or even just go to the gym. If you're in a place where your gyms are not closed down, it can be difficult just to get the motivation. I don't want to go work out. And it's easy to find an excuse not to work out. The way I've always done it, I treat working out like a job. I would never just say, well, I don't feel like going to work today, and not go into work. I go to work. So I treat my workouts the same way. No, I'm not getting paid to work out, but my mindset is the exact same as if I'm going to work. So I'm like, okay, time for my workout now. It's plugged into my day. It's like a meeting. If I have a meeting with a client, it's the same thing. My workout is a meeting. My phone is off. I'm just focused on that workout. Sometimes to get extra motivated, what I'll do is I'll throw on a few YouTube videos just before I train, just to help inspire me, just to get off my ass, not be lazy. And again, music. I find music is a huge one. Oh man, if I didn't have music in the gym, I don't think I'd be able to be motivated. So, whatever you like listening to. I have a different playlist for each workout. For leg day, I like to listen to a lot of Def Leppard, Motley Crue. When I'm doing a back day, I like to listen to a lot of hip hop. So it depends, right? Sometimes I'll listen to classic rock when I'm doing, like, say, an arm workout. So I find music is a big motivator too, right? At the end of the day, it shouldn't be like, oh, I have to go train again. It's a privilege to train. Like, I think a lot of people see that now, especially with these restrictions throughout the world, where gyms were closed for months on end. It's really a privilege to be able to train. So if you're physically able to go to the gym and actually work out and exercise, you should be grateful. It shouldn't be like, oh, this is a chore. And if it is a chore for you, make it fun. If you're not happy with your training style, you're bored in the gym, again, this comes down to maybe hiring a trainer for a few months and try a different style of training, mix it up. I've done that before. I've done bodybuilding splits where I've gone for years on end bodybuilding, and then I did a little bit of functional training for a few months, and then I went back to bodybuilding. You have to find what works for you, right? So that's what I would do. I really focus on treating it like a job, plug it into your day like it's a meeting so you can't miss it. That's why a lot of people work with trainers, right? Because they don't have that accountability on their own to go to the gym. So they know when they book that session, it's paid for a trainer, it's accountability. They show up no matter how they're feeling. So that's another good way to motivate yourself, is maybe work with a personal trainer. Or if you can't afford a personal trainer, work with a friend or family member, but make sure that friend or family member is disciplined and they're also always going to show up. So they'll hold you accountable for your workouts. That's very important, because I've seen people try to train with their buddy or their girlfriend, boyfriend, and the person's not accountable. They might say, no, I don't feel like going today. So if you are going to have a training partner, just make sure that training partner is just as disciplined and dedicated to their training as you are. Otherwise, get a trainer. Throw on a few podcasts before you go to gym, just to help motivate you. You know, some fitness podcasts, they help. And music's a big one. And that's to me, that's without the music in my gym, I don't think I'd even want to train. Next question. If you could only choose one carb, one protein, and one fat source to consume for a month, what would you choose and why? Well, that's easy. I don't have much variety in my diet anyway, but for a carb source, it would be oatmeal. And one of the reasons I like oatmeal, it's filling. It doesn't contain any sugar, so my insulin levels are not doing this. My blood sugar levels aren't dropping or rising. They're staying stable throughout the day. It's got a lot of fiber in it, and it tastes good. I like oatmeal. It gives me a lot of energy. So if it was a carb source and I can only have one carb source for 1 month, it would be oatmeal, because I can eat oatmeal morning, night, afternoon. Doesn't make a difference to me. As far as a protein source, if I can only consume one protein source, I'd actually consume a fatty protein source. Even though I still have a choice for a fat as well, I still want a fatty protein source. And the reason why is because fats keep you feeling fuller for a longer period of time, right? So rather than go for, say, a chicken breast or a cod or a piece of cod, which would just be lean protein sources, I'd probably prefer something like a salmon or trout, just so I get those omega-3 fats from the fish. So I would cheat there. I'd go for a fatty protein source. And for my healthy fats, I would probably go with peanut butter. I think peanut butter is a great fat source. I don't tend to overeat it myself. Some people, I know it's a trigger food, so I don't give it to them on their diet. So if peanut butter is a trigger food for you, ignore that. But for me, it's not a trigger food. I usually will put like 1 tablespoon of peanut butter in, you know, my chicken and rice or my cod and rice. Sometimes I'll even put it in with the salmon and rice, but I mix it up. So I like to use it as a fatty protein source. I don't really like to use oils, although I do put them on people's plans, like avocado oil or extra virgin olive oil or MCT oil. I do put those on people's plans. I personally just don't really like oils myself. So yeah, if I were to do one carb source, oatmeal, one protein source, salmon, and if it was to be a fat source, it would be peanut butter. Next question. Do you have any tips on how to strengthen grip in the gym? I start to lose my grip quickly when doing back exercises in the gym. Okay. So when it comes to your grip, and I say this to clients all the time, you have very little muscle between point A and point B. Okay, this is basically bone and tendon in your forearms. Your forearm extensions, yes, you can build muscle in your forearms. People do wrist curls, so that's one way of building up your forearm extensors. But you have to remember there is very little muscle here and here. So what happens is when you're doing, let's say, a row or a pull down, the first thing people notice is that their grip starts to go, and that's just going to happen with time. So unless you genetically have very strong forearm extensors, or maybe I have a few guys that work in construction, so they have really good grip. But for me personally, my grip is terrible. You know, if I don't have my grabbers, and that's these guys, right? Shameless plug in here, but the grabbers here, if I don't have those, my grip goes right away. I'll do like maybe 10 reps and all of a sudden my form starts to go. And what happens when your form starts to break, you're no longer getting that mind to muscle connection. You can't focus. If I'm doing, let's say, a lat pull down, I can no longer focus on my lats because I'm so focused on losing my grip. So now the mind to muscle connection goes here as opposed to where it should be back there. Now, I know a lot of people like using chalk. I don't. Chalk is messy, and I don't want to have to chalk my hands every time I want to do a set. That's ridiculous. So I do recommend a good pair of straps, lifting straps, or like I said, the grabbers. These work really well as well. I would say 95% of our clients use these. And I actually use them not just for back days. I'll use them for shoulder days. If I'm doing a dumbbell lateral raise, I'll put the grabbers on the dumbbell so I don't actually lose my grip. I'll use them if I'm doing, even sometimes if I'm doing like tricep rope extensions, just so I don't lose that grip. It really does help create the mind to muscle connection because you don't have to focus on your grip. Now, for some reason, if you do want to strengthen your grip, and I don't really know why you'd want to strengthen your grip unless you have a job that requires you to have a strong grip, then yeah, you could do some barbell, the old school barbell wrist curls. They do have those muscle clamps that you can squeeze. You can just get them on Amazon and bring them home and squeeze them, and that'll help strengthen your grip, I guess. But when it comes down to it, if you're lifting heavy weights in the gym, a good pair of lifting straps or grabbers like the ones I showed you here, that I'd recommend 100% I'd recommend. Next question. Last question. Okay, so I know that you don't recommend eating fruit. However, could you elaborate more as to why fruit is bad for us? It's not that I don't recommend eating fruit. I personally don't eat fruit, but I do put fruit on people's nutritional plans. It's funny, I had a friend asking me this last night about apples. And she's like, why are apples so bad? Why don't you have any apples in your house? And again, it's not that fruit is bad, but you have to remember, this comes back to what I was saying at the beginning of the episode with sugar. You have to watch your sugar intake, and fruit does contain sugar. And yes, it's natural sugar, but at the end of the day, it's still sugar. So if you're someone who consumes, let's say, 3 apples a day, 2 bananas, and you're throwing in like maybe a little bit of mango and the slices of pineapple, that's a lot of sugar, right? And a lot of carbs. So you have to be careful with how much sugar and carbs. You don't want to overload, because all of a sudden you're going to notice a little bit of a weight gain there. So nobody's saying that fruit is unhealthy, but what I am saying is that if you're trying to maintain a fairly lean physique, too much fruit is not going to help. Now, 1 apple a day, it's not going to do anything. 1 banana a day, go ahead. But the people I usually work with on my nutritional plans, I'll usually just incorporate blueberries and blackberries. And why? Well, A, they're good, they're great antioxidants, right? We all know that. But also they're very low in sugar. So if ever I'm working with someone on a nutritional plan, I'll say, okay, well, as for fruit intake, for meal 1, let's say in their oatmeal, I'm like, you can throw in 1/3 of a cup of blueberries or 1/3 of a cup of blackberries. I try to stay away from things like strawberries. Again, a little bit higher in sugar. But again, I'd rather someone have strawberry than mango or pineapple. So it's not that I say fruit is bad or detrimental to our health. It's just too much is not good. And even in my opinion, too much would be like, say, 2 pieces of fruit a day. I don't think that's great to have. I would much rather someone have berries over fruit. And if you are going to eat fruit, like apples, for example, I would recommend keeping the skin on. The skin has got a lot of fiber. So if you want to consume something like an apple, the fiber, definitely keep the skin on for that. But fruit, I want to go for the record. I'm not saying fruit is bad. I think a lot of people think I think fruit's bad. I don't eat it. I don't recommend clients consume it every day. But if you want to have fruit every day, go ahead. Just watch your overall sugar intake. A good way to do that too is, if you're not working with a trainer or you don't have a structured nutritional plan, go on Google and type in, how much sugar is in 1 apple. And then make sure that you're not consuming, if you're a woman or a man, if you're a woman, for example, you're not consuming more than 25 grams of sugar a day. A man, you're not consuming more than 30 grams of sugar a day. So just do your macro counting and count your sugar intake and see, okay, well, am I consuming too much sugar of this fruit? If you are, scale it back a bit. And that's it. That's the last question. So this Q&A should be going up on Friday of next week, which I believe will be January 14th, I believe, or 15th. I'm not too sure. I think January 14th or 15th. So this Q&A should be going up. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to email them to me at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM them to me on my Instagram at fitcosgrove. Okay. And I'm always happy to answer any questions with regard to training, dietary, nutrition, supplementation, our training services, our online services, our training services here in Vancouver, British Columbia, at our downtown training facility as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them to me anytime. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you later on.